believing you're doing the right thing and that compounding over time, I found that to be very valuable. I think the journaling is one of the things that comes up most often with some of my podcast guests who are writing down what they were doing, what went right, what went wrong, where their body is feeling off. And I think just getting more in tune between your body and your mind and starting to recognizing patterns over time.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Joe Sena here, CEO and founder of Spartan and host of the Hard Way podcast. I've got a hard guy on here today, Floris Gierman. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Absolutely. Good pronunciation right there.
You've got a platform called Extramilest?
Yes, correct.
And that platform basically helps people level up.
That's right. It was a YouTube channel that started more than a decade ago, and it was me having conversations just like you actually with people that you find interesting in one way or another. Having conversations, this was really around endurance sports, around like different ways that people are pushing the envelope. So yeah, I've been doing that for about 10 years, and it's been a fun journey with just seeing the transformation that different athletes have gone through with learnings along the way.
What would you say, for me, it's been a really interesting journey having the podcast and meeting folks like you. The most interesting thing I've learned in all these podcasts was that the human brain will leave a trace. If a neurosurgeon was to cut your brain or my brain open, they'll see a trace. If we didn't finish hard things, it leaves a gap. If we do finish hard things, it leaves a line. And when I learned that, it really helped me get through other hard challenges that I've taken on or I'm facing in life, because I don't want to leave a gap in the brain. Can you think of, like, over the decade of you doing the podcast and meeting all these people, like what cool things you've learned?
Yeah, I think it's spot on exactly what you were saying there. And I've had several different conversations too with like Wim Hof or Elliot Kipchoge or Kilian Jornet around that topic of, I think the compounding things building up over time was like, it's something easier said than done, but like we all very often don't see the results in the short term. Like we literally like go out for an hour run and it feels good in the short term, but you don't necessarily see that you're becoming that much faster. You don't see that you're losing weight or becoming stronger. Yet believing you're doing the right thing and that compounding over time, I found that to be very valuable. I think the journaling is one of the things that comes up most often with some of my podcast guests who are writing down what they were doing, what went right, what went wrong, where their body is feeling off. And I think just getting more in tune between your body and your mind and starting to recognize patterns over time. I think the journaling one is one that came up very often. The other one was meditation. Like how many athletes that I've interviewed over the years are doing some type of consistent meditation practice that don't only help in like their running performance, but also in their daily life.
I'm so glad you said what you just said. You know, one of my best friends, very, very successful guy, and I was with him last weekend, and I'm pushing him he hates cardio. But we're getting older now, and I'm like, it's a non-negotiable. You got to go out, whether it's 2 miles for you got to do it. And some coach he has been keeping him in zone 2, and he just hates it, and he doesn't see any progress. And I had about 48 hours to kind of distill what he was saying. And I thought, well, maybe my friend is measuring the wrong things. Maybe he's expecting to like be able to run a 2 hour and 50-minute marathon because he's been running but that's not the result you're going to get doing what you do. You're going to maybe live a little longer, which you don't notice today.
That's the thing. Like I feel there's the training component and there's the racing component. And there's a lot of people who are going out in training as if they're racing. And if you actually take a step back and you develop that aerobic zone, you really take the time to slow down to speed up, you'll be surprised how much faster you become at the same heart rate and how much harder you're able to push at the end. Even if you're looking at the elite athletes, they're doing 80-90% of their runs at a low intensity, and they're only doing a very small percentage of that at a high intensity. Dr. Steven Seiler, he was the guy who came up with that 80-20 analogy. within professional athletes too. And they looked across the board and they saw that over and over, not just in running, but also in rowing and skiing and a lot of other activities, that 80-20 principle applies there as well.
It's crazy because when I learned of that, I thought a few things, and then we'll get to the journaling. I thought a few things. I thought, well, shit, I'm doing it exactly right because I'm always going easy. I never go hard, but I've been doing it for so long that when I ask myself to go, I'm actually stronger or faster than I thought I was because I've been doing it for so long, I guess. I don't know.
You know what's so funny about that? Because one thing you might not realize, Joe, is about 8 years ago, you were a guest speaker at the Summit event in LA. And I did a workout with you, with Charlie Angle, with Hobie Darling, and a few other friends. And we were doing a whole lap on a running track that was burpees around the running track. And for you, that might be like, oh yeah, I'm doing my workout slow, I'm doing my workout mellow. For me, I was sore for about a week after that, and I will still remember that one. So I was laughing when you asked me to come on your podcast here.
Well, that's funny that you say that. That was the other thing I thought about when I learned of that science, which is that Olympic athlete, easy for them is probably pretty hard, right? Because they're getting stronger and fitter and stronger and fitter. So that's one thing I think about. The other thing I think about is when I look at wrestlers in the high school level here with my kids, they're like going 95% a max almost every day. And
no, it's wild. I think a lot of people, including your friend here, we're so driven by what is our pace and what is our distance that we have ran. Like, how far did we go? Yet, what if we just look at the time that we spend in a heart rate zone? It kind of takes the pressure off it. It's become a much more enjoyable way of training, I think. Like knowing today I'm going to go out for an hour run, or I'm going out for 2 hours. It doesn't matter whether I run like 5 miles or whether I run 12 miles. It's just, this is what I'm going to be doing. And it kind of takes the pressure out of it.
You know, it's interesting. I just remembered, I just said that years ago when I was doing 300, 500 mile races I was competing in, the team that would crush us was out of Sweden, and they'd beat us race after race after race, and they looked fresh. After a race, I had to sleep for 2 days straight. They just looked great. They're beautiful people, and they're fit, and I asked them, like, what are you guys doing for I finally gave up, and I just wanted to know, what are you guys doing? And they just hike every day, 12, 15-hour hikes every day, nice and easy through the mountains, carrying a little weight on a backpack, and they weren't like crushing themselves at all.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. And I think for me, one of the best examples with this was my wife was trying to get more into consistent shape. Instead of like going into like a rigorous workout routine, we're just going on walks twice a day for 15 to 20 minutes. And within 2 months, our resting heart rate dropped by like 15 beats. And this is just resting heart rate. So even your workout heart rate automatically is going to start coming down as well. It's just fascinating how in 1 day or 1 week, you don't see those results. But then when you zoom out for a little bit, even at a very low intensity, like even walking or hiking like that, it doesn't even have to be hours and hours a day like some of these guys are doing. Even just on a consistent basis, gradually putting in that effort, is going to pay off big time in the long term. But there's not that many people who have that patience to do that, though. And I think they want instant results, and that's where it sometimes gets tricky.
No, I agree. Now let's talk about the journaling. The journaling is an interesting one because the journaling probably connects the brain with the body, right? It's kind of like when I was in college, my last semester, after all that time of struggling and trying to, get A's or B's or not fail, my last semester, somebody said, if you leave your class and handwrite your notes, rewrite your notes from the class every night, you will move that information into long-term memory just by that act. And I thought it was silly, but I did it. And I made Dean's List for the first time with a more work. Like, I wish everybody knew that.
100%. No, it really is. And I think it's not about how much information you write down. It's more about how much can you write down on a consistent basis. Meaning there's like a few key factors that I typically track. I have an online running coaching program. We have about 2,000 members in 60 countries in there. And every Sunday in the Facebook group, I asked the question, what was one thing that you learned this week? And give me just a high level recap. And there's often hundreds of people who are like sharing their experiences. And it's all around 4 topics, basically. It was how was your running week? Like, how did you perceive your overall running week? What went well? What could be improved? What was your sleep like? I think sleep is the absolute pillar of performance, like mentally and physically. What was your nutrition like? And what was your stress level? I think if you just on a consistent basis take out a few of these things that you want to track, that you find interesting, and then you start recognizing patterns over time. And I think that cannot be underestimated. One of the things that stood out to me, for example, was when I would do that recap, I would sometimes write down, I've been on my phone too much. And this was like, I have 2 young children, 8 and 11, and I noticed I was sometimes too much on my phone around them. And then I wrote that again the next week. And then I actually caught myself writing it. I'm like, okay, here's the same pattern happening 3 times now. What can we do about this? And then you can start setting up some simple habits. Okay, I come home and for the first 2 hours, I just put the phone away, or whatever kind of habit interaction you want to put up to change that, what you just found out. But I think sometimes you have to do the journaling to identify some of those patterns.
Yeah, no doubt about it. As you're talking, I'm thinking about my own kids. I want to talk to them and somehow force them, if I can, into that. What would you say, after all these years, all this knowledge you've gathered, the journaling, what would you recommend to folks to optimize their life? Like 3 things that are non-negotiables that people should do to optimize their life.
To me, it really would be, number 1 would be try to get some type of movement in on a daily basis. It really makes such a difference, ideally in the morning, first thing. It's like if you can wake up 30 minutes earlier and you can get some kind of movement in whatever way, shape, or form that has to be. Like that can be outside going for, like, just tell yourself, I'm going to go for a mellow walk. And when I feel like picking up the pace, I'm going to go jog for a little bit. That can be one thing. You can go to the gym, but you can even do it as simple as when you're at home. When you're making your coffee, you do like a few exercises while you're doing that. Like we have the time. It's just more like when you end up watching some TV, do some mobility. Some of these things, just integrating some of the dynamic movement. I think the challenge that I see quite a few people make, including athletes actually, is we work out for half an hour a day. And then the other 23 hours a day, we're just sitting still behind a desk. Like I'm literally right now, I'm standing behind a standing desk, and in between meetings, I'm doing all sorts of, like, I have a lacrosse ball laying around. I'll move my feet on there. I'll do some awesomizers, some mobility work. And that's just done throughout the day. If I walk to the restroom, there's a pull-up bar, and I'll have to mandatory do some pull-ups. It's these little interactions that I think you can start integrating within the day, that you just have more movement throughout it. And I think that very positively impacts your overall feel in your body too. And I think the other one that I will tell all my athletes over and over again is make sleep your number 1 priority. I think a lot of people underestimate how much benefits come from sleep. And so going to bed at a consistent bedtime and waking up at a reasonable, consistent bedtime and aiming for 8 hours of sleep a night. And yes, of course, that's going to be shorter some days, but I think the whole macho behavior of trying to get by with as little sleep as possible. Yes, when you're doing some extreme races, when you're doing some extreme adventures, there's a time and place for that. But make the other times focus on sleep as much as you can there.
I love it. Move every day. Integrate micro workouts throughout your day, and then sleep, because we're completely distracted with phones. We're not optimizing our sleep. I agree with all 3 of those. How do people find you?
It would be my name, Floris Gierman, Floris Gierman on YouTube and Instagram. Those are my 2 main ones. Our running coaching program is at pbprogram.com. And it's very much heart rate, holistic based.
And then let's wrap it up with just, explaining, if we haven't already, this idea of going really, really slow. Really, I think we might have covered it a bit where we talk about this low heart rate, but maybe dive into it a little deeper.
Yes, I think the majority of people is very much used to working out at an intensity that's like a zone 3, zone 4. For those who are not familiar with the zones that much, it's at a reasonably high intensity. Like you're huffing and puffing. You feel like, a lot of people think in order to improve, you have to put in a lot of effort. Yet, it's very often not sustainable. Like you get tired more quickly, you get burned out, overtrained. And we see so many athletes experiencing injuries. Whereas if you actually learn that by slowing down, you're able to finish a workout and still have energy left in the tank, you're still able to like have a conversational pace with a friend. You can keep going longer, keep going further, keep going harder if you wanted to, but you actually decide to have that intensity discipline and hold back. Over time, you become faster at the same heart rate. And this was so, like, I didn't understand that concept at first, but when you're running, for example, I was using a very simple formula, the Methotone 180 formula. It's 180 minus your age, and that comes up with a heart rate. You try not to have your heart rate go over that number for about a 3-month period. And of course, from time to time, if you just want to go out and run hard, to go for it, just don't overdo that. By slowing down, at first, you notice you have to slow down significantly and you can still comfortably breathe. But over time, you become faster. After 1 month, you might notice you run a minute faster at the same heart rate or 30 seconds faster at the same heart rate. Well, if you then do that for 3 months or for 6 months, I've literally seen personally in an 18-month time frame, I was able to shave off about 2.5 minutes from my aerobic pace or from my zone 2 pace just by running mostly at low intensity and then sprinkling in some high intensity. And so when you're able to run that much faster at a lower heart rate, you don't feel so wrecked after like a training run, but even after a race, you don't feel completely wrecked because you're still able to tap into that fat reserve for a primary source. And then, of course, you end up at the higher intensity, taking some of that from glucose as well. But it becomes a much more enjoyable experience. At first, it is challenging. And like there's sometimes that ego and that pride, and you don't want to post slow times on Strava. I hear all about it. People getting frustrated about it. People wondering, am I doing this right? I'm going so slow. This can't be right. Yet, if you get over that initial hump, you can actually look around you and you can feel like the wind on your skin. You can hear your footsteps. You can hear your breathing. You can discover a whole new joy of working out that I think a lot of people have not discovered yet.
I love it. You're awesome. Let's stay in touch and let's get you and your tribe out to one of my races on us.
I would love it. Looking forward to that.